The Fifth Stooge, Yellowstone, and Steve Jackson games are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is March 1st, 2022. It is the 60th day of the year. We got 305 days left. It is the 9th Tuesday in the 10th week and the 71st day of winter. How many days till spring? Guess. Go ahead. Guess. It's 19. If today's your birthday, your birthstone is either an aquamarine, bloodstone, or a jade. Today is National Pig Day. National Pig Day is celebrated annually on March 1st, and it's a perfect time to celebrate how much pigs have become part of American culture. I mean, from bacon to pets, like I have downstairs. I have a pig that she's an outdoor pig during the day, and at night she's got her own bedroom. Not even kidding. Her name's McMuffin. Their website says this: we see pigs in art, costumes, stuffed animals, collectibles, piggy banks, movies, books, and of course, on the dinner table. Yeah, I guess so, ham. I just associate pig and bacon and sausage and stuff like it. But I guess, okay, dinner, ham. Pork chops too, I guess. All right. Let's see what else March 1st has given us. 1692, Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba are brought before the local magistrate in Salem Village, Massachusetts, beginning what would be known as the Salem witch trials. Now, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne were of European descent, basically Caucasians. And then Tituba was either a slave from Barbados or she came from Venezuela. There's a little debate on where she was from, but they were all accused of witchcraft. One thing leads to another, and Tituba starts ratting out all her friends and pointing out other people that are probably witches. She becomes like a witness for the prosecution, and it gets ugly from there. Now, they don't know if she really had some information or she was just trying to save her own skin. They're really not sure what was going on there. It's been a long time, but I always thought that was very interesting. Everyone forgets about Tituba. 1790, the first United States Census is authorized. I live by the census on my other channel. That's where I get most of my stats from. 1872, Yellowstone National Park is established as the world's first national park. If you ever get a chance, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but there's a Ken Burns documentary about all the national parks. That is so worth seeing. Even the one he did about baseball, I really like that one, but the national parks one is just amazing. 1893, electrical engineer Nikolai Tesla gives the first public demonstration of radio in St. Louis, Missouri. 1914, China joins the Universal Postal Union. That is something I really should research because I've always found it amazing that all the different countries have their own form of postal service. They all got on board at some point around here in 1914 or whatever, and they all joined this thing because you could send a letter to almost anywhere in the world. I mean, sure, some places might take a month to get there or whatever, but you can get a letter to just about anyone on the frickin' planet. Even through all the geopolitical nonsense that goes on throughout time on this planet, we can still get letters to people. 1917, the Zimmermann telegram is reprinted in newspapers across the United States after the U.S. government releases its encrypted text. Now, we just talked about this the other day, about the Zimmermann telegram. That's where Germany, during World War I, reached out to Mexico before we entered the war and asked them to attack the United States. So they'd be busy here dealing with the Mexican-American War instead of going over to Europe to fight in World War I. They had all kinds of promises were made to them by Germany, like a whole bunch of money, equipment to fight the war. And in the end, when the United States is totally defeated, they would be able to keep Texas, New Mexico, and I think Arizona. Germany had big plans for taking over the rest of the United States. Didn't work out for them. Anyway, in the end, Mexico decided it wasn't worth it. The United States was too powerful of an army, and Germany was really unreliable with their promises at the time. 1953, Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin suffers a stroke and collapses. He dies 4 days later. Interesting piece of trivia about this one. Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, singer, musician, he was the first Westerner to find out about Stalin's death. He was in the Air Force in Landsberg, Germany, and one of his duties was to decipher Morse code transmissions between Soviet leaders. Well, one night he was doing his duty and he got this Morse code message. He deciphered it, and yeah, Joseph Stalin was dead. Johnny Cash was the first Westerner to figure this out, or to learn about it. 1990, Steve Jackson Games is raided by the United States Secret Service. This was a complete violation of people's rights. Steve Jackson Games was founded in 1980, 6 years after the creation of Dungeons & Dragons. A lot of people don't know this, but video games sort of got their start because of Dungeons & Dragons. The people playing Dungeons & Dragons wanted to incorporate these new computer things they all had into the gaming, and one thing led to another, and games started rolling out, and a lot of them had the Dungeons & Dragons themes in the very beginning. I always thought that was interesting. But Steve Jackson Games wasn't doing computer games. They were doing card games and role-playing games, things like that. Well, in October of 1988, Bell South became aware of a proprietary document related to the 911 system was published on a bulletin board in Illinois. They reported this to the Secret Service. Secret Service kind of tracked it down and realized it had been posted originally on Phoenix, a bulletin board system in Austin, Texas, which was operated by Lloyd Blankenship, who was an employee of Steve Jackson Games. Now, if you don't remember the early days of the internet, bulletin boards were, almost like Facebook, but a very dumbed down version where anyone could post whatever they want to it. Well, they didn't really research who posted this. It was just on there. Since he operated it, he must be guilty. So they raid his work, take his computers, a bunch of floppy disks, and basically all the information they need, and take off. This included a game that he was working on called GURPS Cyberpunk, which is a role-playing game. They felt that this game was sort of teaching people how to commit other hacking crimes. The Secret Service decided they didn't have enough to prosecute anyone, so they gave everything back. Well, Steve Jackson Games, including Steve Jackson and like 3 employees, sued the Secret Service, and they won. They were awarded $350,000 in statutory damages. Well, about $250,000 went to their attorneys, but they ended up walking away with $50,000. Granted, this is back in 1993, so it was okay money, but they should have got a lot more, in my opinion. In the end, the judge actually reprimanded the Secret Service, saying that their warrant preparation was sloppy and suggested they need better education on how the legal system works. This led to the creation of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. This is like a civil liberty association that kind of monitors tech and internet stuff. Steve Jackson's Games, they had some rough times, went through bankruptcy, but they're still going. They got a website, they sell t-shirts, they sell their games. Pretty interesting story about this company. 2003, management of the United States Customs Service and the United States Secret Service moved to the United States Department of Homeland Security, along with the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard used to be part of the Department of Transportation. It wasn't, it's a military unit. It's just not part of the Navy or the Army or the Marines or the Air Force, anything like that. I think most people in the military kind of always viewed them as sort of like the Border Patrol, more like a law enforcement agency than a military unit. Not saying they don't do great work and they're not a very important part of our government. They are. It's just they're not really part of the military. 2005, in Roper v. Simmons, the United States Supreme Court rules that the execution of juveniles found guilty of murder is unconstitutional. Premiered on March 1st, 2015, Last Man on Earth. This was a good show. I liked it. The show follows a man who wishes for a woman after a virus wipes out pretty much everyone on Earth. He thinks he's the last man on Earth. Well, he does find a female, and she's insane. Will Forte created and starred in this show. It was pretty good. It only lasted until about 2019, and it was nominated for 4 Emmy Awards its first season. Born on March 1st, 1914, Harry Caray, American sportscaster. He died in 1998, sadly. Harry Caray was quite the character. Harry got his break in 1945 when he was hired as the broadcaster, the color man for the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team, and he worked for them from 1945 to 1965, but 2 years, in 1945 and 1946, they were called the St. Louis Browns. Still, in 1970, he went to work for the Oakland Athletics, and that only lasted a year because the Chicago White Sox hired him, and he stayed with them till 1981, so 10 years with them. In 1982, he was hired by the Chicago Cubs, and he was their announcer until he retired in 1997. When I say he was a character, he was. So he used to drink throughout the game, and as the game progressed, you could tell he was getting a little lit. There's a comedian that I used to do comedy with. He's on YouTube now. His name's Hal Sparks. He used to be on like Talk Soup on the E! Channel, and then he was on Queer as Folk on Showtime for a while. But he does a great Harry Caray impersonation where he talks about how Harry Caray just had useless information that he'd throw into there, and he'd be like, "That's Juan Martinez rounding second base, carrying the weight of his father's suicide on his shoulders." Then he's all, "I've got Gus Hamilton on the IR today. He's not in today's lineup. It says groin injury. I've got in parentheses next to that, it says venereal disease. So I don't know what's going on." Then Will Ferrell did a great thing where he played Harry Caray on some science show, where he was the host of some science show, and they made him sound like he's a total idiot on this science show, and he's got these doctors, like Jeff Goldblum plays a doctor, and he's asking him questions. He's all, "Hey, doctor, if the moon was made out of cheese, would you take a bite?" Jeff Goldblum's all, "What?" And he said, like, "What's your favorite planet, doctor?" And he's all, "Well, I don't know, they're all," and he's all, "My favorite one's the sun." He's all, "Well, that's not really a planet." He goes, "Yes, it is." He goes, "One time I stared at the sun with a pair of binoculars for over an hour." And Jeff Goldblum's all, "Why would you do that?" And he goes, "Because I was curious." He's all, "I'm so curious, my friends call me Mittens." It just made no sense, but it was hysterical. Died on March 1st, 1988. We lost Joe Besser. Most people don't know who Joe Besser is, but he was the fifth Stooge. They had Moe, Larry, and Curly, and then eventually they got Shemp when Curly fell ill and eventually died. Shemp was Moe's brother. So was Curly, for that matter. Well, on November 22nd, 1955, Shemp died. He was coming home from watching a boxing match in a cab with a friend. He just got done telling a joke while they were in the car. He lit a cigar and slumped over into his friend's lap, burning his friend with the cigar, and he died of a massive heart attack. So the studio sort of forced Joe Besser on Moe and Larry to keep the thing going. He didn't last too long. He was with them for 2 years, from 1956 to 1958, and was replaced by Curly Joe, who stayed with them till the end, 1958 to 1970. He went on to do other things, like was a regular on the Joey Bishop show, The Mother-in-Law. He was in Batman, the TV show, The Good Guys, That Girl, and Love American Style. He also went on to basically voice a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff, like Yogi Bear's Space Race and Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics, things like that. Joe Besser was found dead in his home on March 1st, 1980. He was 80 years old, and he died of heart failure. All right, that's today's show or video, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people email me and thank me for my show. Okay, I guess it's a show. But yeah, I appreciate you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.